They called me the ugly graduate in high school, and my own family cut me off. 10 years later, I ran into them at my sister's wedding. Her husband asked, "Do you know her?" I replied, "A lot more than you realize." Standing at the entrance of my sister's lavish wedding, after a decade of being completely cut off, my heart was a drumbeat against my ribs. I saw their perfect smiles, heard my father praise his only loyal daughter, completely oblivious to the manila folder I clutched, a collection of truths that would not just shatter their perfect world, but utterly destroy it. Sometimes I look back and it's hard to believe this is my life. I grew up in Fairfield, Connecticut, in a neighborhood where every lawn was perfectly manicured, just like the lives everyone pretended to have. Our 6-bedroom colonial, with its heated pool and tennis court, was the envy of everyone. My father, James Mitchell, was a respected heart surgeon. My mother, Elizabeth, was the ultimate socialite, charity galas, country club memberships, and an immaculate appearance were her entire world. Amanda was born 3 years after me, and from my earliest memories, I adored her. I'd read her bedtime stories, braid her hair, and fiercely protect her from the mean girls at Westfield Academy. We shared secrets under blanket forts and made pinky promises about being in each other's weddings someday. When thunder scared her, she'd crawl into my bed, and I'd hold her until she fell asleep. "Becca," she'd whisper, "promise we'll always be sisters, no matter what." "I promise, Mandy," I'd reply, using my special nickname for her. Nothing could ever come between us. But underneath that picture-perfect family image, there were ugly truths we weren't supposed to talk about. I discovered that at 14. I overheard him on the phone, his voice dropping to that special tone he never used with my mother. When I confronted him, he slapped me hard. It was the first time he had ever hit me. "You will never speak of this to anyone, especially your mother," he hissed, his eyes colder than I'd ever seen them. "This is adult business that doesn't concern you." My mother, well, she just medicated her awareness with expensive vodka hidden in water bottles. By noon most days, her speech would be slurred, her movements too careful. I'd find her passed out in the sunroom, a headache, her excuse at dinner. As we entered our teenage years, Amanda and I responded to our toxic home in completely opposite ways. I became rebellious, questioning authority, dyeing my hair black, staying out past curfew, challenging my father's hypocrisy. Amanda doubled down on perfection, straight A's, student council president, volunteer work that looked great on college applications, and a meticulously curated social media presence. "Why do you have to make everything difficult?" Amanda would ask me after I'd had another screaming match with our father. "Just play along. It's easier for everyone. Because it's all fake." I'd respond, "Don't you see how messed up this family is?" But Amanda didn't want to see. She thrived on our father's approval, basking in his praise while I received scorn. In public, he'd introduce her as my brilliant daughter while I became an afterthought. "And this is Rebecca." The beginning of the end came at my 18th birthday party. My father had arranged a sophisticated dinner at the country club, not because I wanted it, but because it was expected for a Mitchell coming-of-age celebration. During dinner, I noticed his hand lingering too long on our 25-year-old event coordinator's lower back. Later, I caught them kissing in his office when I went looking for more champagne. Something in me snapped. I returned to the private dining room where 30 guests, family, friends, relatives, and my parents' business associates were enjoying dessert. I grabbed a spoon and clinked my glass. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate my birthday," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. The room went silent. My mother's face drained of color. Amanda looked absolutely mortified. My father's expression shifted from shock to pure fury in seconds. "Rebecca is clearly intoxicated," he announced smoothly and making inappropriate jokes. "Jessica is a family friend helping with tonight's event. Perhaps it's time we wrap up the evening." Within 30 minutes, the guests were ushered out with apologies and gift bags. Back at home, my father exploded. "You ungrateful little bitch," he roared, pacing our marble-floored kitchen. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The people in that room are hospital board members, donors, colleagues." "Good," I shot back. "Let them see who you really are." "Who I really am." He laughed without humor. I'm the man who gave you everything. This house, your education, the clothes on your back, while you've given nothing but embarrassment in return. My mother sat at the kitchen island, staring blankly at her wine glass. Amanda stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Becca, how could you? She whispered. You've ruined everything. That's when I realized I was completely alone in that house full of people. I want you out, my father said, his voice suddenly calm. It was chilling. You have two choices. Keep your mouth shut about family matters, apologize to everyone at the club, and follow the rules of this house, or leave and never come back. I looked at my mother, silently pleading for support. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked at Amanda. Mandy, you know I'm telling the truth. She shook her head. You're being selfish and dramatic. You always need to be the center of attention, even if it hurts everyone else. Her words cut deeper than my father's ever could. Fine, I said, my voice breaking. I'll leave. I packed a backpack with clothes, toiletries, and a few precious photos. My father watched from my bedroom doorway, arms crossed. Your credit cards have been canceled, he informed me. Your car is leased in my name, so the keys stay here. He handed me 5 $100 bills. This is more generous than you deserve. Don't contact us. Don't come back. And don't use our name to gain sympathy. As far as we're concerned, you're dead to us now. I walked out the front door on a chilly October night, 18 years old, with $500 and a backpack. No one came after me. The first year was the hardest. I slept in shelters when I could, occasionally on friends' couches until their parents became uncomfortable. I worked minimum wage jobs, cashier at a gas station, overnight stalker at a grocery store, dishwasher at a diner. I showered at a gym where I cleaned locker rooms for membership. I learned which fast food restaurants would let you sit for hours if you bought one small coffee. Libraries became my warm, safe places during the day. Not once did I receive a call, text, or email from my family. It was as if Rebecca Mitchell had truly died on her 18th birthday. Rock bottom came 6 months after leaving home. I was fired from my cashier job after falling asleep at the register, following a 30-hour stretch without sleep. That night, huddled in the corner of a bus station with my dwindling possessions, I made a promise to myself. I would not only survive, I would succeed. And someday, I would make my father regret throwing me away. The next morning, I walked into Hartford Community College and spoke with an admissions counselor. With my excellent high school transcripts, I qualified for several need-based scholarships and financial aid programs. I found a room to rent in a shabby house with 4 other students and took on 3 jobs: morning barista, afternoon library assistant, and weekend server at a busy restaurant. My schedule was brutal. Classes from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., work until midnight, study until 3 a.m., sleep for 4 hours, repeat. I ate ramen noodles and day-old pastries from the coffee shop. I wore thrift store clothes and cut my own hair. But for the first time, I was living authentically, without the suffocating pressure of family expectations. During my second semester, I took an Introduction to Law course taught by Professor Linda Harris. She was everything I aspired to be: brilliant, composed, and commanding respect without ever demanding it. After I earned the highest grade on our first exam, she asked me to stay after class. You have a remarkable analytical mind, Rebecca, she said, studying me over her reading glasses. But you look exhausted. Is everything all right? Something about her genuine concern broke through the walls I had carefully constructed. Before I knew it, I was telling her everything: my family, the ultimatum, my current struggle. Instead of pity, her eyes showed understanding. I was homeless for a time in my 20s, she revealed. My path wasn't easy either. But look at me now. Tenured professor, published author, expert witness in major cases. Professor Harris became more than a mentor. She became the mother figure I desperately needed. She helped me apply for additional scholarships, occasionally invited me for home-cooked meals, and most importantly, believed in me when I had trouble believing in myself. You have fire in you, she would say. That's rare and valuable. Channel it into your education. With her guidance, I graduated with honors and a paralegal certification that allowed me to work at a small local firm while applying to law schools. When acceptance letters arrived, including one from Columbia with a partial scholarship, Professor Harris helped me navigate the financial aid process and even co-signed a student loan. Pay it forward someday was all she asked. Law school was both harder and easier than community college. Harder intellectually, but easier because I had stable housing, better nutrition, and Professor Harris checking in regularly. I threw myself into my studies, particularly excelling in classes on financial crimes and healthcare law. The complexities of insurance fraud, Medicare regulations, and medical malpractice captivated me. After graduation, I accepted a position at Donovan, Wright, and Pearson, a prestigious firm in Manhattan specializing in corporate law and financial crimes. I started in the trenches like every new associate, 80-hour weeks, mind-numbing document review, and coffee runs for partners. But I worked harder than anyone else, volunteered for the difficult cases, and stayed latest at the office. By my 5th year, I had been promoted to junior partner, the youngest in the firm's history. I had a sleek apartment in Brooklyn, a wardrobe of tailored suits, and the respect of my colleagues. I had transformed from homeless teenager to successful attorney. The scared, rejected girl was gone, replaced by a confident woman who controlled her own destiny. Then came the case that would change everything. "Rebecca, we need you on the Princeton Medical Group investigation," said senior partner William Donovan, dropping a thick file on my desk. Potential Medicare fraud, unnecessary procedures, kickbacks from medical device companies. Right up your alley. I nodded, already flipping through the file. Who's the primary target? Chief of Cardiology, Dr. James Mitchell. He built their cardiac surgery program into one of the most profitable in the Northeast. But our whistleblower says he's been performing unnecessary surgeries and double-billing Medicare for years. The files slipped from my hands, papers scattering across my office floor. "Are you all right?" William asked, helping me gather the documents. "Fine," I managed. "Just surprised. I've heard of him. His reputation. Well, that reputation might be built on fraud. The numbers don't add up. He's performing 3 times the national average of certain procedures with questionable necessity. We need to build a solid case before taking this to the FBI." That night, I stared at my father's professional headshot in the case file. 10 years older, more gray at his temples, but the same confident smile that had charmed patients, colleagues, and mistresses alike. According to the file, he had expanded his practice, opened a second clinic, and purchased a vacation home in the Hamptons. His estimated net worth had tripled since I left, all potentially built on fraud, unnecessary surgeries on vulnerable patients. My first instinct was to recuse myself due to a conflict of interest. But a deeper, darker thought emerged. Who better to investigate James Mitchell than the daughter he discarded? I knew his patterns, his weaknesses, his arrogance. I understood how he thought. For 6 months, I led the investigation while keeping my connection a secret. I interviewed former patients, nurses who had worked with him, billing specialists. I combed through thousands of medical records, identifying patterns of suspicious procedures. I traced money from medical device companies through shell corporations to offshore accounts. The evidence was damning. My father had built his wealth by recommending unnecessary cardiac procedures to patients who didn't need them. Invasive, risky surgeries that generated massive insurance payments. He had falsified test results to justify interventions and taken kickbacks from device manufacturers for using their products. Worst of all, several patients had suffered complications or died from procedures they never needed. As I assembled the final case file, an elegant cream envelope arrived in my office. Inside was an invitation to Amanda's wedding to Thomas Caldwell III, son of Senator Thomas Caldwell Jr. The wedding would take place at the Greenwich Country Club, the same venue where I had exposed my father's affair 10 years earlier. Attached was a handwritten note. "Becca, I know we have history, but I want my sister at my wedding. Please come. Amanda." I stared at the invitation for hours, wondering how they had found me and what agenda might be behind this sudden outreach. Was it a genuine attempt at reconciliation? A political calculation by the Caldwells to ensure no family skeletons remained hidden? Or something more sinister? Whatever the reason, the timing was uncanny. Just as I completed an investigation that could destroy my father, a doorway to the past swung open. The wedding invitation sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days. Each morning, I would stare at it while drinking my coffee, remembering Amanda's face when she called me selfish and dramatic. Remembering my father's cold eyes when he told me I was dead to them. Remembering my mother's silence. How had they found me? I had changed my name professionally to Rebecca M. Lawson, using my middle initial rather than exposing my connection to the Mitchell family. My address was unlisted, my social media non-existent. On the 4th day, I called Professor Harris. "Linda, I need your advice," I said when she answered. "Something complicated has come up." We met for dinner at a quiet restaurant in the village, where I showed her the invitation and explained the ongoing investigation. "This is quite the ethical dilemma," she said, studying the invitation. "Professionally speaking, you should have recused yourself from the investigation. The moment you recognized your father's name." I nodded, shame washing over me. "I know. However," she continued, "the investigation is now complete, and the evidence would have been discovered regardless of who led it. The question now is what to do about this wedding. Why would they invite me after 10 years of silence?" Linda took a thoughtful sip of wine. "Several possibilities. Your sister might genuinely miss you. Your father might be attempting to control potential damage if he suspects an investigation. Or the Caldwell family might be performing due diligence on their future in-laws." That night, memories flooded back as I tried to sleep. Amanda and I making snow angels in our backyard. My father teaching me to ride a bike, his hands steady on the seat until I found my balance. My mother brushing my hair before school, singing softly. These happy memories existed alongside the painful ones, creating a confusing tapestry of love and betrayal. I dreamed of walking into the wedding, my father's face contorting in shock, my mother dropping her champagne glass, Amanda's makeup streaking with tears. I woke up sweating, heart pounding. For a week, I debated my options. Ignore the invitation and continue with the fraud case, accept the invitation and attempt reconciliation while keeping the investigation secret, or the nuclear option, attend the wedding and expose everything. I scheduled an appointment with my therapist, Dr. Winters, who had helped me process my family trauma over the years. "What do you hope to achieve by attending?" she asked. "Closure," I answered automatically, then paused. "No, that's not entirely true. Part of me wants justice. Part of me wants them to see who I've become without them. And yes, a small, ugly part wants revenge. Those are human feelings, Rebecca. The question is whether acting on them will bring you peace or more pain." After another sleepless night, I made my decision. I would attend the wedding, but not for reconciliation. I would go for truth, to finally break the cycle of secrets and lies that had defined my family. I would bring the evidence file, but make my decision about exposing it based on how the reunion unfolded. I called FBI agent Samantha Taylor, with whom I'd worked on previous financial crime cases. "I need to discuss the Mitchell investigation," I said when we met in a federal building downtown. "There is a complication I haven't disclosed." I told her everything, my relationship to James Mitchell, my reasons for not recusing myself, and the wedding invitation. Agent Taylor's expression remained professional, but I could see disappointment in her eyes. "This could compromise the entire case, Miss Lawson. Defense attorneys will have a field day with your personal vendetta." "The evidence stands on its own," I insisted. "Every document is authenticated. Every witness statement corroborated. My connection doesn't change the facts." After a long discussion, we reached an agreement. The FBI would continue building their case independently of my work. I would attend the wedding as Rebecca Mitchell without any law enforcement involvement. If I chose to present my evidence to my family privately, that was my personal decision. But any public accusation could potentially compromise the federal case. "We're probably 2 weeks from having enough for an arrest warrant," Agent Taylor said as I left. "Whatever you decide to do at this wedding, remember that justice will come either way." With my decision made, I began preparations. I purchased an understated but expensive black dress from Saks. Classic enough not to draw attention, but sophisticated enough to signal success. I made appointments for hair, nails, and makeup. I reserved a room at the Madison Hotel, a mile from the country club. I created a contingency plan, sharing my itinerary with both Linda and my assistant Natalie. If you don't hear from me by Sunday evening, call this number, I told them, providing Agent Taylor's contact information. The night before leaving for Connecticut, I sat in my apartment surrounded by case files and old photographs. I packed the key evidence in a slim manila folder, enough to prove my father's crimes without compromising the full FBI case. As I zipped my suitcase, my phone rang. An unknown Connecticut number. "Hello," I answered cautiously. "Rebecca, it's Amanda." My sister's voice, older but instantly recognizable, sent a jolt through me. "I just wanted to make sure you received the invitation," she continued when I didn't respond. "And to say that I really hope you'll come." "I'll be there," I said, my voice distant even to my own ears. "Really? That's wonderful." She sounded genuinely pleased. "There's so much I want to talk to you about." "We'll have plenty to discuss," I replied, thinking of the documents in my bag. "Yes, we will," she paused. "Becca, thank you." After we hung up, I sat motionless, tears streaming down my face. For the first time, I questioned whether I was making a terrible mistake. The next day, I drove to Connecticut. The familiar landscapes of my childhood brought back memories with each mile. I checked into my hotel under the name Rebecca Lawson, not ready to reclaim Mitchell until the moment of maximum impact. That evening, I drove past our old house, now with different owners, then past Amanda's rehearsal dinner location. I parked across the street, watching through the restaurant windows as my family celebrated. My father looked distinguished in his tuxedo. My mother, elegant but frail. Amanda glowed with bridal happiness, her fiancé handsome and attentive at her side. They looked like the perfect family, just as we had once appeared to outsiders. I wondered what secrets the Caldwells harbored behind their political smiles. I returned to my hotel room and practiced what I might say the next day. Scenarios played out in my mind like competing movie endings. By midnight, I still didn't know exactly what I would do when faced with the family that had erased me. But I knew I wouldn't remain silent. 10 years ago, I had left as a rejected teenager with nothing but a backpack and $500. Tomorrow, I would return as Rebecca Mitchell Lawson, junior partner, investigator, and keeper of secrets that could destroy everything my father had built. I woke at dawn, my heart already racing. The wedding wasn't until 2 o'clock, but anxiety had me up with the sunrise, pacing my hotel room. I ordered room service, but could only manage a few bites of toast. Twice, I nearly called Linda to tell her I was backing out. At 11, I began getting ready, a process I deliberately extended to occupy my racing mind. I styled my hair in a sophisticated updo, applied makeup that emphasized my green eyes, identical to my mother's, and finally slipped into my dress. The woman in the mirror looked nothing like the rebellious teenager who had left home a decade ago. She looked powerful, composed, successful. But when I closed my eyes, I still felt like that terrified 18-year-old walking away from the only home she had ever known. "You can do this," I whispered to my reflection. "You survived worse than a wedding." As I gathered my purse and the manila folder, panic suddenly overwhelmed me. My chest tightened, breaths coming in short gasps. I sank to the floor, my carefully applied makeup streaking with tears. For 15 minutes, I fought through the anxiety attack using techniques my therapist had taught me: deep breaths, grounding exercises, reality checks. Finally calm enough to function, I repaired my makeup and called a car service. "Greenwich Country Club," I told the driver, my voice steadier than I felt. The venue was exactly as I remembered. Manicured grounds sloping down to Long Island Sound. White columns framing the entrance. Flower arrangements taller than children. Guests in designer outfits and summer suits streamed through the doors, greeted by attendants checking names against the guest list. "Name, please?" asked a young woman with a tablet. "Rebecca Mitchell." The name felt foreign on my tongue after years of introducing myself as Rebecca Lawson. Her eyes widened slightly. "Oh, Miss Mitchell, you're on the priority list." She signaled to an older woman who approached immediately. Miss Mitchell, I'm Francis, the wedding coordinator. The bride left specific instructions that you were to be escorted in personally when you arrived. Her smile seemed genuine but curious. Would you like to see her before the ceremony? She's getting ready upstairs. No, I said quickly. I'll just find my seat. Of course. You're at table 3, the family table for the reception. For the ceremony, would you prefer to sit with family in the front? Back is fine, I said. I wouldn't want to disrupt anything. Francis nodded understandingly and led me to the garden where the ceremony would take place. I chose a seat in the last row on the aisle, perfect for a quick exit if needed. As the garden filled with guests, I observed without being noticed. Distant relatives who had attended holiday dinners now had gray hair and moved slower. Parents of childhood friends double-checked their seating assignments. My father's medical colleagues in expensive suits, their wives comparing jewelry. The senator and his wife greeting guests with practiced warmth. Rebecca? Rebecca Mitchell. I turned to see my mother's sister, Aunt Catherine, staring at me in disbelief. It is you. My goodness, we all wondered if you'd really come. She embraced me awkwardly. You look different. Grown up. 10 years will do that, I replied, forcing a smile. Yes, well, she seemed unsure how to continue. Such a shame. Everything that happened. Your poor mother. But water under the bridge now. Yes. Families should stick together. Before I could respond, she was called away by her husband. As she laughed, I overheard her whisper to another guest, "That's the daughter who ran off. The troubled one." Troubled one. The label stung, reinforcing that the family narrative had been constructed to paint me as unstable rather than truth-telling. I slipped away to find a bathroom, needing a moment alone. Inside the country club's marble-floored ladies' lounge, I splashed cold water on my wrists, a calming technique Linda had taught me. The door opened and in the mirror, I saw my mother enter. Elizabeth Mitchell froze, her hands still on the door. She had aged dramatically, thinner, paler, her once vibrant auburn hair now a soft gray. For a moment, shock registered openly on her face. Then, like pulling on a mask, she composed herself into the perfect society matron. Rebecca, you came. She approached carefully as if I might bolt. Amanda will be pleased. Will she? I turned to face her directly. Or is my invitation just another Mitchell family performance? Invite the estranged daughter so no one asks uncomfortable questions. That's not fair. She glanced toward the door, lowering her voice. Darling, I know things ended badly, but this is your sister's wedding. Let's not make a scene. Not make a scene. The familiar refrain of my childhood. Don't embarrass the family. Keep secrets. Maintain appearances. I'm not planning to make a scene, Mother. I kept my voice level. I'm just here because Amanda asked me to be. She nodded, seemingly relieved. You look well. Successful. Her eyes traveled over my designer dress, professional hairstyle, the confidence in my posture. What are you doing these days? I'm an attorney, junior partner at Donovan, Wright, and Pearson in Manhattan. Pride flickered briefly in her eyes before uncertainty replaced it. Your father will be surprised to see you. I'm counting on it, I replied, my tone making her flinch slightly. A woman entered the bathroom, giving my mother an excuse to retreat. We'll talk more at the reception, she said, squeezing my arm before hurrying out. The encounter left me shaken. I had expected anger or coldness from my mother, not this strange blend of politeness and fear. She looked unwell beyond normal aging. Something in her movement suggested frailty. Following an impulse, I made my way to the bridal suite. A sign on the door read, Amanda's special day, with hearts and flowers. I knocked tentatively. Come in, called a cheerful voice. I opened the door to find my sister in her wedding gown, surrounded by bridesmaids I didn't recognize. When she saw me, she froze mid-laugh, her champagne glass suspended halfway to her lips. Becca, she whispered. You really came. The bridesmaids, sensing the tension, made excuses about checking on flowers and disappeared, leaving us alone. Amanda looked beautiful. Her blonde hair elegantly styled, her dress a sophisticated mermaid silhouette that highlighted her slender figure. At 29, She had matured from pretty girl to stunning woman. I almost didn't, I admitted. She set down her glass and approached me slowly, as if I might disappear. I wouldn't have blamed you. After everything, why did you invite me, Amanda? After 10 years of silence. She gestured for me to sit on a velvet settee, carefully arranging her dress as she sat beside me. It wasn't 10 years of silence on my part. I tried to find you, Becca. The first year, I hired a private investigator with my savings. Dad found out and threatened to cut off my college tuition. I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. You never called, never emailed. I sent letters to your friend Julie's house, to your old work addresses. When those were returned, I tried through social media. Did you ever check your old accounts? I shook my head. I cut all ties to my old life. I figured that out eventually. She twisted her hands in her lap. The truth is, I'm getting married into a political family. Thomas and we want to start fresh with honesty. Having this weird estrangement hanging over us felt wrong. So, this is about the Caldwell's image? No. Her eyes flashed with genuine hurt. It's about me wanting my sister back before I start this new chapter. It's about regretting how I treated you when we were younger. It's about healing our family before. She trailed off. Before what? Amanda hesitated. Mom's sick. Late stage. The news hit me harder than expected. Despite everything, this was the woman who had once tucked me in at night, who taught me to read, who had moments of maternal warmth between her episodes of alcohol-numbed detachment. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, meaning it. How long? Months, maybe? She wanted to make it to the wedding. Amanda studied my face. You really didn't know? You haven't been monitoring the family at all. I've been busy building a life without you, I said, the words coming out sharper than intended. A knock at the door interrupted us. 5 minutes until we need to start, the wedding planner called. Amanda stood, smoothing her dress. Will you stay, please? We can talk more at the reception. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Thank you for coming, she said, squeezing my hand. It means everything to me. As I left the bridal suite, conflicting emotions swirled through me. Amanda seemed sincerely glad to see me, which challenged the narrative I had constructed over 10 years, that my entire family had callously discarded me. The news about my mother's illness complicated my purpose further. I was so distracted that I nearly collided with my father as I rounded a corner. James Mitchell looked older, but still commanding. Silver hair perfectly styled, his tuxedo obviously custom-made, his posture militarily straight. When he recognized me, his expression cycled rapidly through shock, anger, and calculation. Rebecca, he said, his voice controlled. What are you doing here? I was invited, I replied evenly. By Amanda, his jaw tightened, without consulting me. It's her wedding, not yours. He glanced around, noting nearby guests who were trying not to stare at our tense exchange. We should discuss this privately. Nothing to discuss, I said. I'm here for the ceremony, then the reception. Tomorrow I'll be gone. Why now? He demanded in a harsh whisper. After all this time? Maybe I miss my family, I suggested, my tone making it clear I didn't. Or maybe I was curious about the man Amanda's marrying. The Caldwells are an impressive political dynasty, after all. At the mention of the Caldwells, my father's expression changed subtly. Fear flickered in his eyes before he masked it. Whatever you're planning, don't. This day is important for connections that go beyond our family. Connections, I repeated. Always the pragmatist. He stepped closer, his voice dropping further. Why did they let you in? You weren't on the guest list I approved. So, he had tried to block me. Interesting. Amanda must have overruled you, I said, enjoying his discomfort. She seems quite determined to have her sister at her wedding. Music began playing in the garden, signaling the ceremony was about to begin. My father's friend and attorney, Richard Porter, approached quickly. James, they're ready for you to escort Amanda down the aisle. He noticed me and did a double take. Is this my daughter, Rebecca? My father confirmed stiffly. She'll be leaving shortly. Actually, I'll be staying for the reception, I corrected him. Table 3, I believe. Family table. The color drained from my father's face. He exchanged a meaningful look with Porter before turning back to me. We'll continue this discussion later. As he walked away to fulfill his father of the bride duties, I noticed him whispering urgently to Porter, who nodded repeatedly, his expression grave. They were worried about my presence, and they should be. The wedding ceremony was picture perfect. Amanda glowed as she exchanged vows with Thomas, who looked at her with genuine adoration. My father played his role flawlessly, the proud father giving away his daughter, his speech about family values and commitment drawing appreciative murmurs from the guests. My mother dabbed at tears with a monogrammed handkerchief. Senator Caldwell beamed at the alliance his family was forming with a respected medical dynasty. Only I knew what a charade it was. During the transition to the reception, I kept to myself, observing from a distance as guests mingled over cocktails on the terrace. Several times, I caught my father watching me nervously while speaking with Porter. Twice, I noticed my mother starting toward me, then changing her mind. The reception began with a lavish dinner in the main ballroom. True to the seating chart, I was placed at table 3 with immediate family, my parents, the Caldwells, and Thomas's sister. The tension was palpable beneath forced pleasantries. So, Rebecca, Senator Caldwell addressed me directly. Amanda tells us you're an attorney in New York. Impressive career path. Thank you, Senator. I specialize in financial crimes. My father choked slightly on his champagne. Fascinating area, the senator continued, oblivious to my father's discomfort. Any interesting cases you can share? Without confidential details, of course. Actually, I recently completed an investigation into healthcare fraud, I replied, looking directly at my father. A prominent surgeon performing unnecessary procedures, falsifying records, taking kickbacks, the usual pattern of greed over patient care. My father's knuckles whitened around his fork. My mother looked confused. Sounds like important work, Thomas's mother commented. Protecting vulnerable patients from exploitation. That's exactly how I see it, Mrs. Caldwell. No one should profit from unnecessary suffering. Before the conversation could continue, the wedding planner announced it was time for speeches. My father stood, straightening his tuxedo jacket, and walked to the microphone at the front of the ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, as father of the bride, it's my privilege to welcome you all to this joyous occasion. His speech was eloquent, talking about Amanda's childhood achievements, her kind heart, her bright future with Thomas. He spoke about family legacy and values, about the sacred trust between parent and child. With each hypocritical word, my resolve strengthened. When he finished to appreciative applause, the wedding planner consulted her list. Next, we'll hear from the maid of honor, then the best man. I stood up. Actually, I'd like to say something. The planner looked flustered. You're not on the program, Ms. Mitchell. I'm the bride's sister, I said firmly. Surely that counts for something. From the head table, Amanda gave a small nod to the planner, who reluctantly gestured toward the microphone. The room fell silent as I approached the front. My father remained standing at the side of the stage, his expression a warning. My mother looked terrified. The Caldwells watched with polite interest, unaware of the incoming storm. I took the microphone, surveying the room filled with Connecticut's elite, doctors, politicians, old money families, people who had attended parties at our house when I was growing up, who had watched our perfect family performance for years. For those who don't know me, I'm Rebecca Mitchell, Amanda's older sister. I paused, letting my gaze sweep across the curious faces. Some of you might be wondering where I've been for the past decade, since I haven't been present at family functions. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Good. I had their attention. 10 years ago, on my 18th birthday, I was given an ultimatum by my father. Keep quiet about certain family matters, including his multiple affairs, or leave and never return. I chose truth over comfort, integrity over family loyalty. That night, I walked out of our house with $500 and a backpack. Gasps and whispers erupted. My father stepped forward, but I continued before he could interrupt. For the first year, I was homeless. I slept in shelters, worked minimum wage jobs, and eventually put myself through community college while working 3 jobs. Not once during that time did my family check if I was alive or dead. Amanda was crying now, Thomas holding her hand tightly. My mother had her face in her hands. My father was frantically signaling to Porter. Through sheer determination and the kindness of strangers who became my real family, I graduated from Columbia Law School and became a junior partner at Donovan, Wright, and Pearson, specializing in financial crimes. I opened the manila folder I had brought to the podium. Which brings me to the real reason I accepted Amanda's invitation. 6 months ago, my firm was assigned to investigate potential Medicare fraud at Princeton Medical Group, specifically the practice of Dr. James Mitchell, who has been performing unnecessary cardiac procedures on elderly patients, falsifying test results to justify interventions, and taking kickbacks from medical device companies. The room erupted in shocked exclamations. Senator Caldwell stood abruptly, his face ashen. My father lunged toward the stage, but 2 of Thomas's military friends blocked his path. I have here documentation showing that over the past 8 years, my father has performed at least 300 unnecessary surgeries, resulting in 12 patient deaths and millions in fraudulent Medicare claims. I held up several papers, bank records showing payments through shell companies, testimony from nurses and technicians who were pressured to falsify data. She's lying, my father shouted. This is revenge from a mentally unstable daughter. She has no evidence. Actually, I have copies of everything, I replied calmly. And the FBI has the originals. They've been building a case independently of my investigation. As if on cue, the ballroom doors opened and Agent Taylor entered with 2 other agents. They hadn't been part of my plan, but apparently, they had been monitoring the situation. James Mitchell, Agent Taylor announced, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of healthcare fraud, false claims, and criminal negligence resulting in death. Chaos erupted. Guests stood, phones recording the unprecedented scene. The Caldwells huddled together, security personnel surrounding them. My father was handcuffed, still protesting his innocence and demanding his attorney. Through the commotion, I noticed my mother collapse into her chair, a security guard calling for medical assistance. Amanda pushed through the crowd toward me, her wedding dress billowing around her. How could you? She cried, reaching the podium. Today of all days. But there was something unexpected in her expression. Not just anger, but relief, as if a burden had been lifted. You knew, I realized. You suspected something wasn't right. She looked away. I had concerns. Comments Dad made that didn't add up, but I never imagined this scale. Amanda. Senator Caldwell called sharply. We're leaving now. Thomas approached, his face grave. Amanda, my parents insist we need to distance ourselves immediately. His campaign. Amanda looked between her new husband and me, torn between her past and future. Before she could respond, my mother's doctor approached us. Miss Mitchell, your mother is asking for both of you. In a quiet side room, my mother lay on a sofa, an oxygen mask over her face. She looked fragile, the cancer having clearly ravaged her body more than I had realized. When she saw us enter together, she removed the mask with a shaking hand. My girls, she whispered. Together again. Amanda knelt beside her, still in her wedding gown. Mom, save your strength. No. My mother's voice was surprisingly firm. I need to say this while I can. She looked at me. Rebecca, I knew about the affairs, about the money, not everything, but enough. I was a coward. The alcohol made it easier to pretend. Tears streamed down my face. Why didn't you support me that night? Fear, she admitted. Your father controlled everything. The money, the house, our social standing. And I was already sick then, though we kept it private. Early symptoms that I ignored. She took a labored breath. I've regretted my silence every day since you left. She turned to Amanda. And you, my perfect daughter, who followed all the rules. I watched you become what I was, trapped in a life of appearances. She glanced toward the door where we could hear the Caldwells arguing with wedding staff. Be careful of the cage you're choosing, sweetheart. Mrs. Mitchell, a nurse, interrupted gently. We need to get you to the hospital for evaluation. As they prepared to transfer my mother to an ambulance, she grabbed my hand with surprising strength. The letters, she whispered, in my blue jewelry box. I kept them from you both. Before I could ask what she meant, the medical team whisked her away. Amanda and I stood in stunned silence, processing everything that had happened. Through the window, we could see the reception in disarray. Guests leaving hurriedly. FBI agents collecting statements. My father being placed in a federal vehicle. Letters. Amanda finally asked. I don't know, I admitted. But I intend to find out. Thomas entered, his expression conflicted. Amanda, my parents are insisting we leave immediately. They're talking about annulment, damage control. Amanda looked at her ring, then at me, then back at Thomas. Tell them I'll be out shortly. When he left, she turned to me. 10 years ago, I betrayed you by staying silent. I won't make that mistake again. She took a deep breath. Did you come here just for revenge? Or is there some part of you that wanted to reconnect? Both, I admitted. I wanted justice, but seeing you, I've missed my sister. She nodded, tears streaking her carefully applied makeup. This isn't how I imagined my wedding day ending. Political scandal, federal arrests, family secrets exposed. I'm sorry about the timing, I said, meaning it. Don't be. Maybe this is exactly what needed to happen. She squeezed my hand. We have a lot to figure out, about Mom, about these letters, about what happens next. From outside, Senator Caldwell's voice boomed, Amanda. No, she grimaced. I need to deal with my new in-laws. But this isn't over, Becca. We're talking tomorrow. As Amanda left to navigate the political fallout of her wedding day, I remained in the quiet room, emotions washing over me in waves. The justice I had sought for a decade had arrived. But it felt hollow compared to the revelations about my mother's illness, her regrets, and the mysterious letters she mentioned. I had come to expose secrets and destroy the family that had rejected me. Instead, I found that secrets had been kept from me as well. Attempts at contact, regrets unspoken, complexities I hadn't imagined. The perfect family image was shattered forever. But in its place, something unexpected emerged, the possibility of truth. The day after the wedding made every newspaper in the Northeast. Headlines ranged from prominent surgeon arrested at daughter's wedding to Caldwell in-law scandal, Medicare fraud allegations shake political dynasty. My name appeared in several articles, identified as both the estranged daughter and the attorney who had helped build the case. I checked out of my hotel early, avoiding reporters who had somehow discovered where I was staying. Amanda called as I was driving back to New York. The Caldwells are in full crisis mode, she said, her voice hoarse from crying. Thomas's father has his entire campaign team working on distancing themselves from Dad. They're pushing for an annulment. What do you want? I asked, realizing no one had probably asked her that question. A long silence followed. I don't know anymore. Everything I thought I knew about our family, about my future, it's all changed in 24 hours. Where are you now? At a hotel near the country club. The Caldwells insisted we cancel the honeymoon. They've scheduled a press conference for tomorrow where Thomas and I are supposed to express shock and dismay about Dad's alleged crimes. Alleged? I repeated. Amanda, there's nothing alleged about it. I've seen the evidence. I know, she whispered. I believe you. That's why this is so hard. She took a shaky breath. Can we meet? I went to the house this morning while Mom was at the hospital. I found the jewelry box she mentioned. 3 hours later, we sat in my Brooklyn apartment, a blue velvet box between us on my coffee table. Amanda looked exhausted, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Her wedding ring was conspicuously absent. You should open it, she said. She mentioned letters. Inside the box were dozens of envelopes, some yellowed with age, organized chronologically with rubber bands. The first bundle was addressed to me in Amanda's handwriting, postmarked weekly for the first year after I left. The second bundle contained letters from my mother to me, never sent. The third, most surprising bundle held letters addressed to Amanda in my handwriting. I never received these, Amanda said, holding up letters I had written her during my first 2 years away. I wrote to you every week that first year. When nothing came back, I started writing less frequently, but I never stopped completely. I wrote to you too, I admitted, for 2 years, until I convinced myself you didn't care. We spent hours reading the intercepted correspondence. Amanda's letters were filled with apologies, updates about her life, pleas for me to come home. My letters to her contained my struggles, small victories, and eventually news about college. My mother's unsent letters revealed her private torment, knowledge of my father's affairs and financial irregularities, her cancer diagnosis that had come and gone into remission before returning, her regret at not standing up for me. She kept these from both of us, I said, anger and grief competing in my chest. She let us believe we had abandoned each other. But why? Amanda asked, wiping tears. What purpose did it serve? Control, I suggested. Dad's control over her, over the family narrative. If we reconnected, his version of events might be challenged. Amanda nodded slowly. He convinced me you were unstable, attention-seeking, that contacting you would only encourage your destructive behavior. She looked up, eyes red-rimmed. I should have tried harder to find you. You did try, I reminded her, gesturing to the letters. We both did. As evening fell, Amanda received increasingly urgent calls from the Caldwell's campaign manager. After the 5th call, she finally answered, putting it on speaker. Amanda, we need you at the senator's house tomorrow morning to rehearse the press conference. The statement has been prepared. You just need to look appropriately shocked and supportive of Thomas. What if I don't attend? She asked. A pause. That's not an option. The prenuptial agreement you signed includes specific provisions about family loyalty and public appearances. If you refuse, you'll be in breach of contract. The annulment would be immediate, and you'd be liable for damages to the campaign. After hanging up, Amanda looked shell-shocked. I knew the prenup was extensive, but I didn't realize. I was so focused on the fairy tale. You don't have to go through with their plan, I said. You have options. Like what? I have no income of my own. My trust fund is contingent on Dad's approval, which obviously I've lost now. My career has been planning charity events for my mother's friends. I'm 30 years old with a useless art history degree and no real work experience. Stay here, I offered impulsively. My guest room is yours as long as you need. And I know plenty of people who could help you find legitimate work. She looked around my apartment, modest by Mitchell's standards, but comfortable and clearly mine. You really built a life without any help from them, didn't you? Not without any help, I corrected. Just not their help. I had Professor Harris, friends who believed in me, mentors who saw my potential. That night, Amanda slept in my guest room while I lay awake, processing the seismic shifts in my family dynamics. The justice I had sought had been served. My father would face charges. His reputation destroyed. But the revelation of the intercepted letters changed everything. My sister hadn't abandoned me. My mother had regrets. The black and white narrative I had constructed over 10 years had shades of gray I never anticipated. The next morning, I called into work, explaining I needed personal time to deal with family matters. William Donovan was understanding, but concerned about potential conflicts of interest. The firm may need to officially distance itself from your personal connection to the Mitchell case, he explained. Not disciplinary action, just procedural cleanup. I understand, I said, relieved I wasn't being fired outright. Amanda emerged from the guest room looking more rested, but still lost. Mom called. She's being discharged today. The cancer treatments have been suspended during this crisis. Where will she go? Home, I guess, though with Dad's assets frozen pending investigation, I'm not sure how long she'll be able to stay there. We visited my mother that afternoon. Elizabeth Mitchell looked small in her hospital bed, but her eyes were clearer than I had seen in years. You found the letters, she said when we entered together. I nodded, sitting beside her. Why, Mom? Why keep us apart? She closed her eyes briefly. Your father convinced me it was for the best. That contact would only hurt both of you. And I was weak, afraid of losing what little stability I had. She looked at me directly. It was unforgivable, but I'm asking for your forgiveness anyway. I'm working on it, I said. Honestly, it's going to take time. Time is the one thing I don't have much of, she replied with surprising calm. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer doesn't leave much room for long reconciliations. Amanda took her other hand. We're here now, Mom. Both of us. My mother squeezed our hands. Then that's more than I deserve and everything I could ask for. Over the next weeks, a new rhythm emerged. Amanda officially moved into my guest room, choosing to break from the Caldwells despite their legal threats. My mother moved into a hospice facility near my apartment where Amanda and I visited daily. My father remained in federal custody, denied bail due to flight risk. The media attention was intense at first. Reporters camped outside my apartment building and followed us to the hospice. The story had everything: medical fraud, political scandal, family drama. Amanda and I gave no interviews, focusing instead on rebuilding our relationship and caring for our mother. At work, I was removed from all healthcare fraud cases, but otherwise allowed to continue my duties. The FBI investigation proceeded without my involvement, building an airtight case against my father and several accomplices, including his office manager and 2 other doctors in his practice. Amanda struggled with her new reality, from senator's daughter-in-law to scandal-adjacent civilian, from wealthy socialite to unemployed 30-year-old. But she also showed remarkable resilience, applying for jobs in museum administration and taking a temporary position at a local gallery. I always wanted to work in the art world, she confessed one evening as we shared takeout in my living room, but Dad insisted it wasn't a Mitchell-worthy career. What else did you want that you didn't pursue because of him? I asked. She thought for a moment. Travel that wasn't just to luxury resorts, friends who weren't socially advantageous, a relationship based on love rather than appropriate pedigree. She smiled sadly. I was the good daughter who stayed. But in some ways, you were freer by leaving. 1 month after the wedding, we received word that my father wanted to see us. Against my better judgment, I agreed to accompany Amanda to the federal detention center. James Mitchell had aged years in weeks, his designer clothes replaced by a jumpsuit, his commanding presence diminished by confinement. He nonetheless attempted to control the conversation from the moment we sat across from him. This case will be thrown out, he began without greeting. My attorney is filing motions to suppress evidence obtained under false pretenses by a family member with a vendetta. The FBI built their case independently, I reminded him. My investigation was just the starting point. He dismissed this with a wave. I need you both to make statements supporting me. Character witnesses, family solidarity. Amanda and I exchanged glances. That's why you wanted to see us? She asked. Not to apologize or explain? There's nothing to apologize for, he insisted. Everything I did was for this family, to give you the life you deserved. By performing unnecessary surgeries on elderly patients? I challenged. By risking lives for profit? By building a practice that could support our lifestyle, he countered. Medicine is a business, Rebecca. I simply maximized returns. People died, Dad, Amanda said quietly. Actual people. He had the decency to look momentarily uncomfortable before his defenses reasserted. Medical complications happen. That's why we have malpractice insurance. We left 30 minutes later, having refused his demands for support. In the parking lot, Amanda broke down. He's still trying to control us, she sobbed. Still can't admit he was wrong. I held her, my own emotions a complex mix of vindication and sorrow. He may never change, Amanda. Some people can't face their own failures. Then we need to make sure we're not like him, she said, straightening her shoulders. No more family secrets. No more lies between us. As we drove back to the city, a weight I had carried for 10 years began to lift. The justice I had sought was unfolding through legal channels. The sister I had mourned was back in my life. The mother I had resented was showing genuine remorse in her final months. None of it erased the past, the rejection, the years of struggle, the pain of abandonment. But it offered something I hadn't expected when I received that wedding invitation, the possibility of healing. 6 months after Amanda's wedding turned federal arrest, autumn painted Central Park in fiery colors, visible from my office window. On my desk sat a framed photo of Amanda and me at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, our arms around each other, genuine smiles on our faces. Next to it, a reminder card for my mother's hospice care schedule. James Mitchell's trial was scheduled for January. The prosecution had built an overwhelming case: financial records, patient testimonies, cooperating witnesses from his medical practice. His attorney had attempted to have my involvement in the initial investigation used to suppress evidence, But the judge ruled that the FBI's independent work was admissible regardless of how the case originated. My father refused to accept a plea deal, maintaining his innocence despite mounting evidence. His medical license had been suspended, his assets frozen, his reputation destroyed. The house in Connecticut was in foreclosure proceedings, its contents being cataloged for a potential sale to compensate victims. My mother's condition had deteriorated rapidly. The stress of the scandal seemed to accelerate her decline, though she insisted it was liberating to have the family's secrets finally exposed. "I've lived in beautiful prisons for decades," she told me during one lucid afternoon. "First my parents' expectations, then your father's control. I don't mind dying, Rebecca. I just regret not living authentically first." Those moments of clarity became increasingly rare as her pain management regimen intensified. Amanda had taken family medical leave from her new job at the Metropolitan Museum of Art to spend more time at the hospice, often sleeping in the recliner beside our mother's bed. My own career had stabilized after the initial upheaval. While I was no longer involved in healthcare fraud cases, my expertise in financial crimes remained valuable to the firm. William Donovan had even suggested I might be considered for full partner in the next round of promotions. "Your work on the Mitchell case showed extraordinary diligence and attention to detail," he said during my performance review. Setting aside the personal complications, the investigation itself was exemplary. Professor Harris, Linda, as she now insisted I call her, had become a regular visitor to my apartment, often bringing home-cooked meals and offering emotional support as we navigated the family crisis. "You've come full circle," she observed one evening as we shared dinner. "From the homeless student fighting to survive to the successful attorney bringing justice and rebuilding family bonds." "Not quite full circle," I corrected her. "I'm not the same person who left Connecticut 10 years ago. I don't want reconciliation on their terms anymore. I want truth, whatever that looks like." On a crisp October morning, the call I had been both expecting and dreading came. Amanda's voice was steady, but thick with tears. "Mom's gone." She went peacefully in her sleep. The funeral was held 3 days later at a small chapel near the hospice. Despite the Mitchell name once commanding a significant social presence in Connecticut, the attendance was sparse. A few loyal friends of my mother's, distant relatives, Amanda and me, and a handful of hospice staff who had grown fond of Elizabeth. My father was permitted to attend under guard, dressed in a suit instead of his prison jumpsuit, handcuffs removed for the service, but 2 U.S. Marshals flanking him throughout. He looked diminished, his confident posture replaced by stooped shoulders, his commanding presence reduced to that of an aging man facing the dual losses of freedom and his wife of 35 years. The service was simple and honest. No grandiosity about a perfect wife and mother, but rather acknowledgement of a complex woman who had made mistakes but sought redemption in her final days. Amanda spoke beautifully about our mother's artistic sensibilities, her knowledge of literature, her moments of warmth that punctuated our otherwise formal upbringing. I shared memories of her teaching me to play piano, our trips to museums in New York, and the genuine joy she found in beautiful things. Neither of us mentioned her alcoholism, her enabling of our father's behavior, or her role in keeping us apart. Those truths had been acknowledged privately between us and with her before she died. The public service needed no further unburdening. After the final prayer, attendees filed past her casket to pay respects. When my father's turn came, he stood motionless, staring at his wife's peaceful face. For a moment, his mask slipped and genuine grief transformed his features. He placed his hand on the casket, whispered something only he and Elizabeth would ever share, then allowed the marshals to lead him away. Outside the chapel, as attendees dispersed to their cars for the cemetery procession, my father was permitted a brief moment to speak with us before returning to custody. "Your mother loved you both," he said, his voice rougher than I remembered. "Despite everything we know," Amanda replied. "She told us." He nodded, looking suddenly older than his 63 years. "I'd like to see you again. Before the trial." Amanda looked at me, deferring to my decision. "We'll think about it," I said, neither committing nor refusing outright. As the marshals led him to the transport vehicle, he turned back once. I did love her, you know, in my way. Your way, I repeated. That was always the problem, wasn't it? After the burial, Amanda and I returned to my apartment, exhausted by grief and the weight of family history. We sat in silence for a long time, sipping tea and watching the city lights emerge as evening fell. What happens now? Amanda finally asked. We keep going, I said simply. One day at a time. In the weeks that followed, we established new routines. Amanda found an apartment in my neighborhood, close enough for regular dinners together, but allowing us both independence. She thrived in her museum role, her knowledge of art history finally finding productive application. I continued my legal career, gradually shifting my focus toward advocacy for elderly victims of financial exploitation. We visited our childhood home one last time before it was sold at auction. Walking through empty rooms that once contained our entire world was surreal. The formal dining room where countless silent family dinners had unfolded. The staircase I had stormed up during teenage arguments. Amanda's bedroom with its faded pink walls. My own room stripped of personality after my departure. In my mother's closet, we found a small fireproof box containing birth certificates, old photographs, and a journal she had kept sporadically over the years. Reading it together on the floor of her empty bedroom provided both pain and healing, her private thoughts revealing a woman more self-aware than we had realized. Trapped in a marriage she had entered for security rather than love. Fighting depression with alcohol and denial. I don't think I want any of the furniture or artwork, Amanda said as we prepared to leave. Too many memories. Agreed, I replied. But I'll take Mom's piano if possible. That holds good memories. The auction proceeds went primarily to a victims' compensation fund with a small portion reserved for my mother's final expenses. The Mitchell family wealth, built on fraud, maintained through appearances, was dismantled systematically through legal proceedings. January arrived with snow and my father's trial. Amanda and I attended only the opening and closing statements, avoiding the detailed testimony about patients who had suffered unnecessary procedures. The evidence was overwhelming, the prosecution methodical. After 8 days of trial and 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all counts. At sentencing, the judge showed little leniency. Dr. Mitchell, you violated the most sacred trust between physician and patient. Your actions were motivated by greed, sustained by deception, and resulted in needless suffering and death. The court sentences you to 18 years in federal prison. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked for our reaction. Amanda stepped forward, poised despite the cameras. Today brings accountability, not joy, she said. There are no winners when trusted professionals abuse their power. Our thoughts are with the patients and families affected by these crimes. As media attention finally faded, Amanda and I established a new family tradition, Sunday dinners at my apartment with Linda Harris and a rotating group of friends who had supported us through the ordeal. These gatherings became our chosen family, bound by loyalty and honesty rather than obligation and appearances. One Sunday evening, as spring returned to the city, Amanda raised her glass for a toast. To Rebecca, she said, who had the courage to leave and the strength to return. Who chose truth over comfort and justice over silence. Linda added, and to both of you for rebuilding what was broken on a foundation of honesty this time. Later that night, after everyone had left, Amanda helped me clean up. Our comfortable silence a testament to reconnection. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't left that night? She asked, drawing a wine glass carefully. Sometimes, I admitted. But I wouldn't have become who I am. And you wouldn't have become who you are now. True, she nodded. Though it took losing everything to find myself. Not everything, I corrected, bumping her shoulder affectionately. You still have me. On my office desk, that framed photo of us served as a daily reminder that family isn't defined by blood alone, but by who stands beside you through truth, not lies. The sister I had lost and found again. The path forward we were building together. The Mitchell family, as it once existed, was gone. The facade of perfection shattered, the patriarch imprisoned, the matriarch buried, the ancestral home sold, the wealth dispersed. But from those ruins, something more authentic had emerged. A relationship between sisters based on honesty, a chosen family built on genuine connection, and the freedom that comes with living in truth. I still visit my father occasionally at the Federal Correctional Facility in Pennsylvania. Our conversations remain difficult. His ability to accept responsibility is limited by the defensive walls he built over decades. But we're both trying, in our imperfect ways, to understand each other. Some wounds may never fully heal, but acknowledgement is at least a beginning. The journey from that night 10 years ago when I left home with nothing to today has been longer and stranger than I could have imagined. The justice I sought came at a high cost to everyone involved. The reunion with my sister brought both pain and healing. The truth about my family revealed complexities beyond the simple narrative of villains and victims I had constructed. If there's a lesson in all of this, perhaps it's that family secrets inevitably surface. And the longer they're buried, the more damage they cause when revealed. Or maybe it's that true family stands by you through honesty, not convenience. Or simply that it's never too late to rebuild what was broken if you're willing to start with truth.